The distress call. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concord shimmered with an ethereal glow, its vast dome ceiling capturing the light of 3 artificial suns. Ambassador Kayla Vin of the Serathi Alliance stood at the center platform, her translucent skin pulsing with waves of deep blue, the color of profound grief among her people. Esteemed members of the Concord, she began, her melodic voice trembling. I stand before you as perhaps the last voice of my people. A murmur rippled through the hall, where representatives of 32 spacefaring civilizations gathered in ascending tiers of crystalline observation platforms. Most had never seen a Serathi display such intense emotional coloration. With a gesture of her elongated fingers, Kayla Vin activated the central holographic projector. Above the assembly appeared the image of a lush green world with spiraling silver cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. Then the image shifted, showing the same planet scarred with massive impact craters, its oceans boiling away into toxic clouds, and black ships like obsidian shards cutting through the atmosphere. This was Serathi Prime, our homeworld, 43 cycles ago, she continued. Now it is a lifeless husk. The Void Dominion has consumed 12 of our colonial worlds since then. We have lost contact with 9 more. Our remaining population, just over 4 billion souls, has gathered at our last defensive position around Serathi Refuge. The hologram changed again, displaying a massive fleet of crystalline Serathi vessels in a protective formation around a small blue world. Approaching them was a vast swarm of black, angular ships that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Our scientists estimate that the Dominion will breach our final defenses within 30 standard days. When that happens, my species faces extinction. Kayla Vin's skin paled to an almost transparent white. The Serathi Alliance formally requests military intervention from the Galactic Concord. High Chancellor Zethral, the ancient Arcosian who led the Concord, leaned forward on his 8-limbed support frame. His species had achieved spaceflight nearly 15,000 years ago, and their technological supremacy remained unquestioned. Ambassador Kayla Vin, he responded, his voice like rustling leaves. Your situation moves us deeply. But you must understand, the Concord has maintained peace for 9,000 years precisely, because we do not maintain standing military forces. Our member worlds have evolved beyond the need for weapons of war. Kayla Vin's skin flashed crimson. With respect, Chancellor, we too were a peaceful people. We had no warships, no planetary defenses. That is why the Dominion targeted us first. The Void Dominion is a tragic anomaly, interjected Representative Voss of the Meridian Collective, his holographic avatar flickering with mathematical symbols. Our models suggest they will collapse under their own consumption rate within 300 years. Strategic non-engagement remains the optimal response. 300 years. Kayla Vin's voice rose. My people will be gone in 30 days. From the lowest tier of the assembly, the section reserved for newly admitted species, a figure stood. Unlike the willowy, ethereal forms of most advanced civilizations present, this being was compact, densely muscled, with dark brown skin and close-cropped black hair. She wore a dark blue uniform adorned with only a small insignia, a stylized earth surrounded by stars. The Serathi need help now, said Captain Maya Reeves, Earth's first representative to the Concord. Not philosophical debates or probability models. The assembly fell silent. Humans had joined the galactic community barely 8 months ago, after their experimental warp drive had accidentally triggered a Concord automated greeting beacon. Many members still viewed them with uncertainty or outright suspicion. Chancellor Zetheral's ancient eyes fixed on Reeves. Captain, I appreciate your directness. But Earth is still adapting to membership in our community. This matter involves complex historical. It involves genocide. Reeves interrupted, causing several representatives to emit sounds of shock at the breach of protocol. And Earth can help. She walked to the center of the chamber, her movements fluid but powerful. the unconscious grace of someone born on a high-gravity world. Standing beside Kelvin, the contrast between them was striking. The ethereal, 7-foot-tall Cerethi with her translucent skin, and the solid, compact human who stood barely 5.5 feet tall. Earth maintains a defense fleet of 76 warships, including 12 heavy carriers and their fighter complements. We can have them ready to deploy to Cerethi Refuge within 72 hours. The chamber erupted in astonished exclamations. Warships, gasped Representative Ilara of the Solarian Consciousness. Your species built warships. The observational protocols clearly indicated that new members must dismantle all weapons of mass destruction upon joining the Concord. Reeves remained calm. Earth was not a member when we built our fleet. We developed it to protect ourselves from unknown threats in space. She gestured toward the holograms still showing the Void Dominion ships. Threats that are apparently very real. Zetherol raised a limb for silence. Captain Reeves, do you understand what you're proposing? Your species comes from what our xenobiologists classify as a Class 12 death world, a planet with environmental conditions so harsh that it produces naturally aggressive, conflict-oriented species. Your evolutionary psychology makes you predisposed to see threats and respond with violence. Reeves nodded. Yes, we're aware of your classification system. And yes, Earth tried to kill us every day with earthquakes, hurricanes, diseases, predators, and extreme climate variations. We survived. We adapted. We learned to fight. She turned to face the assembled representatives. But we also learned to protect those who cannot fight. That's what humans do. We defend. Ambassador Kilavin's skin had begun to pulse with a new color, a hesitant yellow that signified hope. Earth is offering military assistance, Reeves continued. Not conquest, not expansion. The Cerethi need defenders. We're volunteering. Zetherol's ancient face remained impassive. If we permit this intervention, Captain, there must be strict conditions. Oversight from Concord observers, limited engagement parameters, and immediate withdrawal once the threat is neutralized. Agreed, Reeves said without hesitation. Kilavin stepped forward, her skin now glowing with brilliant yellow light. As ambassador of the Cerethi Alliance, I formally accept Earth's offer of military assistance against the Void Dominion. Reeves nodded and touched the communicator on her wrist. Admiral Hassan, this is Captain Reeves. The Cerethi Alliance has requested our intervention against a hostile species called the Void Dominion. The Galactic Concord has approved our assistance under standard ROE protocols. A deep, steady voice responded. Understood, Captain. Earth Defense Fleet is standing by. We can commence jump operations to Cerethi space in 36 hours. All ships are combat ready. Proceed, Admiral, Reeves said. Earth stands with the Cerethi. As the communication ended, she surveyed the stunned faces around her. For millennia, you've seen humanity's capacity for aggression as a flaw, something primitive to evolve beyond. But today, that same capacity may save billions of lives. The assembly hall remained silent, the representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations confronting an uncomfortable truth. Their peaceful evolution had left them unable to defend themselves against the rare species that chose violence. The Deathworlders are coming, Reeves said simply. We're coming to help. Admiral Farid Hassan stood on the bridge of the EDF Intrepid, Earth's largest carrier-class vessel. At just under 2 kilometers in length, its sleek, gunmetal gray hull housed 120 fighter craft, 24 bomber squadrons, and enough firepower to level a small continent. Its protective escort of 4 battlecruisers and 12 destroyers formed a defensive perimeter around it as the fleet prepared for its warp jump. Status report, Hassan commanded, his voice carrying the hint of his Persian ancestry despite generations of his family living in the United North American Alliance. Commander Sophia Chen, his executive officer, stepped forward with a holographic display. All ships report ready for jump, Admiral. We've completed our last-minute loadout of experimental weapons from Luna Base. And the Serathi situation? Chen's expression tightened. Deteriorating rapidly, sir. The Void Dominion launched a major offensive 12 hours ago. They'd broken through the outer defense line. Serathi forces are in retreat toward refuge. Civilian casualties are significant. Hassan nodded grimly. Then we have no time to waste. Lieutenant Rodriguez, signal all ships. Prepare for warp jump to Serathi refuge. Combat formation Delta upon arrival. Aye, sir, the young officer replied, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Ambassador Killavin, who had insisted on traveling aboard the Intrepid, stood silently at the rear of the bridge. Her skin had taken on a muted gray tone, the Serathi equivalent of astonishment. Is something wrong, Ambassador? Hassan asked, noticing her changed coloration. I had not fully comprehended the scale of your military capability. Admiral, she admitted. The Serathi have not built weapons of war for 9,000 years. The sight of so many dedicated war vessels is unsettling. Hassan's weathered face softened slightly. My people have a saying, Ambassador, si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. Before Killavin could respond, the ship's AI announced, all vessels report ready for warp jump. Coordinates locked on Serathi refuge. Hassan took his command chair, his dark eyes fixed on the main view screen. Execute jump. Space folded around the Earth defense fleet, stars stretched into lines of light, and with a flash that momentarily outshone a small sun, 76 human warships arrived in Serathi space. The scene that greeted them was chaos incarnate. The Void Dominion's forces, hundreds of obsidian ships that seemed to drink in the light around them, swarmed around the remaining Serathi defensive line. The crystalline Serathi vessels, beautiful but clearly designed primarily for exploration and transportation rather than combat, were being systematically destroyed. Behind them, refugee ships by the thousands fled toward the sanctuary of Serathi Refuge, a small azure world protected by a shimmering energy field. Dear God, whispered Commander Chen. There are so many of them, Killavin said, her voice hollow. We never stood a chance. Admiral Hassan rose from his chair, his expression hardening into one of determination. Tactical analysis. Now. The ship's AI responded instantly. Hostile forces number approximately 843 vessels of varying classes. Their weapons appear to be primarily energy-based with some form of gravity manipulation technology. They are demonstrating coordinated attack patterns consistent with a hive mind or centralized command structure. Enemy has detected our arrival, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. Multiple hostiles breaking off their attack on Serathi forces. 317 vessels now on intercept course with our fleet. Hassan nodded, unsurprised. They recognized the greater threat. Lieutenant Commander Park, deploy all fighter wings. Cruiser groups form defensive perimeter around the carriers. Battle Group Epsilon, prepare to engage the enemy's forward elements. Throughout the fleet, pilots raced to their fighters, gunners took their positions at weapon stations, and Marines prepared for potential boarding actions. The Intrepid's massive bay doors opened, disgorging squadrons of arrow-shaped fighter craft that moved with impossible agility. Hassan activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, all personnel. This is Admiral Hassan. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the survival of an entire species. The enemy outnumbers us, but they have never faced humans in combat. Show them what that means. A ragged cheer echoed through the communication network as the first wave of Earth fighters engaged the Void Dominion's vanguard. Brilliant flashes of energy weapons crossed space as the battle was joined. They fight with such ferocity, Killavin whispered, watching the tactical displays as human fighters executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal, only to emerge from the heart of enemy formations, leaving destruction in their wake. That's because we have something worth fighting for, Hassan replied, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. The protection of the innocent is a cause humans will die for. As the two fleets fully engaged, it became clear that while the human vessels were technologically outmatched in some respects, their tactics and adaptability were unlike anything the Void Dominion had encountered before. Where the Dominion forces moved with perfect coordination, the humans seemed to improvise, creating unpredictable patterns that confused their hive-minded enemy. But the initial human advantage of surprise was quickly fading. The sheer numerical superiority of the Dominion was taking its toll. Reports of destroyed fighters and damaged capital ships began to flood in. "Admiral," Commander Chen reported grimly, "at current attrition rates, we'll lose combat effectiveness in approximately 3 hours." Hassan nodded, his face grim but determined. "Then we have 3 hours to find their weakness." He turned to Kelvin, whose skin had paled to an almost transparent state. "Ambassador, you said your scientists have been studying the Dominion. What do we know about their command structure?" As Kelvin began to explain what little the Serathi had learned about their enemy, the battle raged around them. The first major engagement between humans and an alien force had begun, and despite their courage and determination, it seemed the Deathworlders might have finally met a foe they couldn't overcome through sheer force of will. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as humanity fought its first interstellar war. The human response: "Every hive has a queen," Admiral Hassan murmured, studying the holographic display of the Void Dominion's fleet movements. After 3 hours of continuous combat, the situation had grown dire. 27 human vessels had been destroyed or disabled. Fighter losses approached 60%. The remaining ships of the Earth Defense Fleet maintained their protective cordon around the Serathi refugee vessels, but they were being steadily pushed back toward the planet. "What did you say, Admiral?" Kelvin asked, her translucent skin now pulsing with a mixture of gray despair and the electric blue of curiosity. "An old Earth concept," Hassan replied, his dark eyes never leaving the tactical display. "In insect colonies, destroy the queen and the colony falls apart. Your scientists mentioned the Dominion shows signs of hive-mind coordination. That suggests centralized control." Commander Chen approached with a fresh analysis. "Sir, we've been tracking energy signatures across the Dominion fleet. There's an unusual concentration of quantum fluctuations in this region." She highlighted a section deep within the enemy formation, where several larger vessels maintained position, surrounded by layers of defensive ships. Hassan's expression hardened with newfound determination. "That's it. That's their command nucleus." "Admiral," Chen cautioned, "even if you're right, we don't have the firepower to break through their defenses, not conventionally." "Then we won't use conventional methods." Hassan turned to his communications officer. "Get me Captain Wei of the Shadow Strike." Moments later, the holographic image of a compact Asian woman in stealth combat armor appeared. The insignia on her shoulder identified her as commander of Earth's most elite special operations unit. "Shadow actual reporting, Admiral," she said crisply. "Captain Wei, I need your team for a high-risk insertion mission. We've identified what we believe to be the Dominion's command structure. I want your people to infiltrate and neutralize it." Wei's expression remained impassive, but her eyes narrowed slightly, the only indication of the mission's extraordinary danger. "Understood, sir. What's our insertion vehicle?" "The prototype," Hassan replied. "It's time to field test the Phantom." A murmur of surprise rippled through the bridge crew. The EX-01 Phantom was Earth's most classified project, a ship equipped with experimental phase shift technology that theoretically allowed it to move through solid matter. We nodded. "We'll be ready in 20 minutes. Her hologram disappeared. Kelvin stared at Hassan in confusion. "Admiral, I don't understand. No ship can penetrate the Dominion's defensive screen. Their energy field would disintegrate any matter that touches it." Hassan permitted himself a thin smile. "Ambassador, there's something you should understand about humans. When conventional physics says something is impossible, we take it as a challenge." Deep in the Intrepid's secure hangar bay, Captain Maiwei led her team of 12 operatives through final equipment checks. Each wore a sleek exosuit of dark material that seemed to absorb light, with helmet displays that glowed with a soft blue radiance. "Listen up," Wei addressed her team. "This is a one-way insertion. The Phantom can get us in, but we'll need to find our own way out." Lieutenant Jackson, her second-in-command, looked up from checking his pulse rifle. "So, standard Tuesday then." A ripple of grim laughter passed through the team. "The Dominion ships are partially organic," Wei continued. "Our target is what we believe to be their central command node. We plant the Nova charges here, and here." She indicated points on the holographic display. "Then we extract through their launch bay if possible. If not," she shrugged, "improvise. That's why they pay us the big credits," quipped Specialist Rodriguez, the team's demolitions expert. "Actually, they don't pay us nearly enough," Wei replied with a rare smile. "That's why we get to make history instead. Humanity's first strike team in interstellar warfare. Make it count." The hangar's far walls slid open, revealing a ship unlike any other in Earth's arsenal. Where most human vessels were utilitarian in design, the Phantom was almost artistic, a flowing, asymmetrical shape of midnight black material that seemed more liquid than solid. No visible engines, weapons, or sensors marred its perfect surface. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said Dr. Eliza Kamamoto, the project's lead scientist, as she approached the team. "And terrifying in what she represents." We nodded in agreement. "A weapon that renders all conventional defenses obsolete." "If it works," Kamamoto cautioned. "The phase drive has never been tested in combat conditions. Theory says you should be able to pass through the Dominion's energy shields and hull as if they were mist. Reality," she shrugged, "might be messier." "Comforting," Jackson muttered. We checked her chronometer. "We're out of time and options, Doctor. It works today, or the Serathi join the extinction list." On the Intrepid's bridge, Admiral Hassan watched as the remaining human fleet repositioned for what could only be described as a suicidal charge. "All ships, this is Admiral Hassan. Execute Operation Thunderstrike on my mark. Carrier groups, launch all remaining fighters. Battle groups Alpha and Delta, prepare to engage the enemy's forward screen. Cruiser divisions, stand by for coordinated barrage on target designates." Kelvin stood transfixed as the human vessels, many already damaged and venting atmosphere, formed into attack formations. "You're sacrificing your fleet," she whispered. Hassan's face remained impassive. "I'm creating a diversion, Ambassador. And in war, diversions cost lives." He activated a private channel. "Shadow actual status." Wei's voice came through, accompanied by the background hum of the Phantom's experimental drive. "Phase drive at nominal power. Course plotted directly through their defensive screen to the command node. Awaiting your signal, Admiral. The fleet will give you your window. After that, it's in your hands." Hassan paused. "The Serathi are counting on you, Captain. We all are." "We won't fail," Wei replied simply. Hassan returned to the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, execute." The space between the fleets erupted in blazing light as every remaining human vessel opened fire simultaneously. The Void Dominion's perfect formation wavered momentarily under the onslaught, creating microscopic gaps in their defensive screen. From the Intrepid's launch bay, the Phantom emerged. No engines flared. No energy signature betrayed its presence. It moved like a shadow through space, directly toward the heart of the enemy formation. "Phase drive engaged," Dr. Kamamoto's voice reported from the Intrepid's engineering section. "Phantom has gone translucent. They're on their way." Inside the Phantom, Captain Wei and her team experienced what could only be described as the universe turning inside out. Their bodies felt simultaneously solid and insubstantial as the ship phased between states of matter. "Status," we demanded, fighting through the disorientation. "Phase integrity holding at 82%. The ship's A responded. "Approaching Dominion energy barrier in 3, 2, 1. There was a moment of impossible pressure as though they were being crushed and stretched simultaneously. Then, "We're through," reported Lieutenant Jackson in disbelief. "We're actually inside their defensive perimeter." Way allowed herself one breath of relief. "Maintain phase. Take us directly to the command node." The Phantom glided forward, passing through the outer hull of the largest Dominion vessel, as if it were no more substantial than fog. Inside, they found an organic nightmare, a ship that was as much living entity as machine, with pulsing tissues and mechanical components fused together in grotesque harmony. "God Almighty," breathed Specialist Chen, the team's xenobiologist. "It's not just a hive mind. The ships themselves are extensions of a central organism. Can we complete the mission?" Wei asked sharply. Chen nodded. "Yes. In fact, this makes it easier. The neural pathways are visible. We can follow them directly to the command center." The Phantom continued its ghostly journey through the heart of the Dominion flagship, following the glowing neural conduits that grew progressively larger. Finally, they reached a massive chamber at the ship's core. "Phase drive power at critical levels," the AI warned, "maintaining translucence for approximately 3 more minutes." "That's our cue," Wei said. "Prepare to dephase on my mark. Weapons hot, charges ready." Her team moved into position, checking their weapons one final time. "Dephase in 3, 2, 1, mark." The Phantom suddenly solidified within the heart of the enemy vessel. Alarms instantly blared throughout the ship as its biological systems detected the intrusion. "Move," Wei ordered, leading her team through the Phantom's airlock and into the Dominion command center. What they found defied easy description. The chamber was dominated by a massive, pulsating brain-like structure suspended in a transparent fluid. Numerous tentacle-like appendages extended from it, connected to various control interfaces where entities that resembled a nightmarish fusion of insect and reptile worked frantically. "That's the commander," Chen said in awe. "The entire Dominion fleet is an extension of that being." "And now it dies," Wei replied coldly. "Rodriguez, plant the charges. Everyone else, defensive positions. Nothing reaches those explosives." The Dominion crew, having recovered from their initial shock, began to respond. Warrior drones poured into the chamber from multiple entrances, firing energy weapons that left scorch marks on the organic walls. The Shadow Team's training showed in their response. Precise, coordinated fire that dropped the first wave of attackers within seconds. But more kept coming. "Charges set," Rodriguez called. 10-minute timer active. "Too long," Wei decided instantly. "Override to 5 minutes. We need to." Her words were cut short as the massive brain entity emitted a pulse of energy that knocked the entire team to the ground. The sensation of countless alien minds suddenly pressing against their consciousness was overwhelming. "Why do you attack?" The thought wasn't heard so much as felt, boring into their minds like a drill. Wei fought through the mental assault, struggling to her feet. "You're exterminating the Sirathi. We're stopping you." "They are FO'd. You are FO'd. All is food for the Dominion." "Not today," Wei growled, raising her weapon and firing directly into the brain entity. The gelatinous tissue rippled as the rounds penetrated, releasing a noxious fluid. The mental pressure intensified, becoming agony. Several of Wei's team collapsed, blood streaming from their ears and noses. "Fall back to the Phantom," Wei ordered, continuing to fire as she retreated. "Move." The surviving team members dragged their unconscious comrades back toward their ship, laying down suppressive fire as warrior drones swarmed from every entrance. 4 minutes to detonation, Rodriguez reported, his voice strained. They reached the Phantom just as its phase drive finally failed, the ship becoming fully solid in the heart of enemy territory. "Get us out of here," Wei shouted to the pilot as the last of her team stumbled aboard. "Phase drive depleted," the pilot reported grimly. "Conventional engines only." Wei made a split-second decision. Blast a hole through the hull. We'll space jump if we have to. The Phantom's energy cannons, weapons that had never been tested in actual combat, powered up and fired. The organic hull of the Dominion flagship ruptured, exposing the command chamber to the vacuum of space. The brain entity writhed in agony as its life-sustaining fluid boiled away. Go, Way ordered. The Phantom lurched forward on conventional thrusters, squeezing through the rupture in the Dominion ship's hull and into open space, directly into the midst of the largest space battle in human history. On the Intrepid's bridge, Hassan watched in amazement as the Dominion flagship suddenly developed a catastrophic breach. More incredibly, the perfect coordination that had characterized the enemy fleet began to falter. Ships that had moved with flawless precision now drifted in apparent confusion. "The Phantom," he demanded. "Emerged from the flagship, sir," reported Lieutenant Rodriguez. "They've made it out, but their phase drive is offline. They're trapped behind enemy lines." Hassan's jaw tightened. "All ships, this is Admiral. Create an extraction corridor for the Phantom. I don't care what it costs. Get our people out." The already battered Earth fleet responded with everything they had left. Fighters sacrificed themselves to draw fire away from the Phantom. Cruisers targeted any Dominion vessel that turned toward the tiny human ship. The Intrepid itself moved forward, its massive weapons creating a path of destruction. 3 minutes to detonation, Chen reported. The Phantom limped through space, its conventional engines pushing to their limits as it navigated the chaotic battlefield. Dominion ships, though disorganized, still vastly outnumbered the human fleet and possessed superior firepower. "They're not going to make it," Kilivin whispered, her skin pale with dread. Hassan refused to accept that conclusion. Intrepid, ahead full. "Intercept course with the Phantom." "Sir, that takes us directly into the heart of the enemy formation," his navigation officer protested. "I'm aware, Lieutenant." "Execute." The massive carrier surged forward, its defensive guns blazing in all directions as it pushed deeper into enemy territory. The Phantom, damaged but still flying, altered course to meet it. 1 minute to detonation, Chen announced. "Phantom is within tractor range," reported the tactical officer. "Lock on and bring them in," Hassan ordered. "All ships, emergency jump coordinates have been transmitted. Prepare for immediate withdrawal on my mark." The Intrepid's tractor beam engaged, pulling the Phantom into its recovery bay just as the countdown reached 30 seconds. "Phantom is aboard. All ships, emergency jump now," Hassan commanded. Throughout the battlefield, the remaining human vessels activated their warp drives in a dangerous, synchronized maneuver. Space twisted around them as they tore free from normal space, just as the Nova charges detonated within the Dominion flagship. The explosion was beyond catastrophic. The artificial quantum singularity at the heart of the charges briefly created a microscopic black hole that consumed the flagship and dozens of nearby vessels before collapsing in on itself. But far more significant was the effect on the surviving Dominion fleet. With their central consciousness destroyed, the hive mind collapsed. What had been a perfectly coordinated armada became a collection of confused individual vessels, many of which simply drifted powerless through space. 2 days later, Admiral Hassan stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Concord, Captain Wei and her surviving team members beside him. Before them, the representatives of 32 spacefaring civilizations watched in stunned silence as the after-action report concluded. Chancellor Zetherol spoke first. "The Concord owes humanity a debt we cannot easily repay. The Serathi people have been saved from extinction. The Void Dominion has been neutralized." Kilivin stepped forward, her skin glowing with the bright gold of joy and gratitude. "The Serathi Alliance formally extends an invitation to Earth to establish a permanent defensive pact. We offer access to our scientific and cultural achievements in exchange for continued protection." Hassan glanced at Wei, both of them bearing the fresh wounds of their victory. 41 human ships had been destroyed. Over 8,000 personnel had been lost. The cost had been enormous. But not one Sarathi refugee ship had been lost after the human fleet's arrival. "The Earth Defense Fleet accepts your invitation, Ambassador," Hassan replied formally. "We did not come to the stars seeking war. But we will not stand idle when innocent lives are threatened." Chancellor Zetheral's ancient eyes studied the humans thoughtfully. "Perhaps we have misunderstood Earth's evolutionary path. We saw your capacity for violence as a primitive trait to be outgrown. We failed to recognize that it evolved alongside an equally powerful drive to protect." Hassan nodded. "Humanity's history is filled with war, Chancellor. We don't deny that. But our greatest heroes have always been those who fought not for conquest, but in defense of others." Captain Wei stepped forward, still wearing her combat uniform. "On Earth, we have a concept called the sheepdog. Peaceful herbivores evolved alongside predators. But then came a third type of creature, one with the strength of the predator, but the heart of the protector. That's what humanity aspires to be among the stars. We have teeth and claws, yes, but we use them to defend the flock, not to prey upon it." The assembly hall remained silent as the galactic community contemplated this new understanding of their most dangerous, and now, perhaps most valuable, member species. "The Deathworlders have shown us something today," Chancellor Zetheral finally said, "that there is a place for guardian predators in a peaceful galaxy. The Concord formally recognizes Earth's special status as protectors of interstellar peace." As the assembly erupted in a mixture of applause and the various expressions of approval unique to each species, Hassan couldn't help but smile slightly. "Not bad for our first interstellar crisis," he murmured to Wei. "It won't be the last," she replied, her expression serious. "The Dominion might be defeated, but there will be others. The galaxy is vast, and not everything out there is friendly." Hassan nodded. "Then humanity will be ready. Not because we seek war, but because peace sometimes needs guardians willing to fight for it." In the vast darkness between the stars, word spread quickly of the species from a death world who had stood against the Void Dominion when all others had stood aside. Some heard the news with relief, others with concern, but none could deny the new reality. The humans had arrived on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same again.